there is this moment right now, or this sort of zeitgeist and conversation around how brands are going to basically come back to be so important.
Welcome to Playbook Broken.
Hello, and welcome back to Playbook Broken, where we deconstruct and talk about what playbooks are breaking, why they're breaking, and what to do about it. Today, we're diving into the paid advertising and nonprofit world with Deema Tamimi, who's not only the VP of Marketing at Creatopy, but also involved with several nonprofits doing some incredible work and invariably redesigning or updating a variety of playbooks. Deema brings an incredible background with experiences at Xbox, Microsoft, YouTube, Google, Flipboard, Unity, Scribd, and Figma, popular platform. She also brings a passion for mentoring women, and as a dad of two of my own, couldn't be more happy to welcome her to the show. Deema, it's so good to connect and talk. Welcome to Playbook Broken.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So cool to have you. Let's just start with some common ground. We were talking before. Looks like we both worked at Microsoft actually at the same time, but in two different divisions. I was in EPG. You were obviously at Xbox. What a small world.
I know. It's always like, there's just like, it's fun to see like so much has happened in the last several years on marketing and tech. And I'm amazed at how many people are in this world, and like that we end up being, it's such a small world. I end up reconnecting with people, and yeah.
And now, congratulations, you've got yourself a new gig, VP of Marketing at Creatopy. What's that been like with all the market craziness, AI and whatnot, joining a new team at this time?
Wow. Yeah. It feels like being on a rocket ship in like many, many ways. And yeah, I mean, just in general, marketing right now and tech it's just going through so much change at like warp speed with what AI is bringing to the table. I've seen lots of changes in tech over the years, but this one, I always say, I think it feels much faster. That's the thing that feels super unique about this time. There was always like very cool advancements that we saw, but this one is like so fast, and the speed that it's happening at means that things are almost entirely different within like a couple of months. You know, we're just talking like warp speed change. And we're all trying to keep up with it. Marketers, anybody who's, you know, working in using tech. So yeah, and then coming onto the company, I've only been at Creatopy for a couple of months now. So, but it feels like a long time, but that's the startup timeline. It's like way faster. I feel like I've been there for a couple of years. 1 month equals a year.
We used to say like back in the like late 90s or 2000s, it was like internet years were like dog years. And
Totally.
I hadn't really thought of it now, but I agree with you, by the way. It is speeding up. And so I don't know what's faster than dog years. That's AI, AI years is like maybe 12 instead of 7.
Years. Yeah. And then it's like exponential. So like right now it feels like 100x. Now it's, you know, in a month or 2 months, it's going to be like more than that. That's what's so unique and exciting and daunting about kind of all the things that are happening right now with AI.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that is actually a terrific segue. We'll get into everything as we kind of embark on the journey here. This is a new show, as I said. I think you're 6th or 7th or something like that. And so I've got these different segments. And today we're going to do kind of playbook breakdown. I'm curious, as I was thinking about this, we all have our go-to moves, frameworks, tactics. I sometimes will say like, you know, ducks quack, they don't roar. It's like, you know, you can't get a lion out of a duck. But when you join a new culture, as you have, it's such a weird analogy. It's an opportunity to revisit, you know, both your and their playbook as you come in, especially at a VP level. So maybe let's start by talking about that transition into Creatopy. Like clearly they had a playbook. Clearly, you know, what works in the marketplace. How do those things together? And then where does it sort of, you know, bash into one another from an execution standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that has been, I've come into a lot of companies and sort of seen a lot of similar things, especially as it is around marketing and product. So it's kind of like marketing, product, and growth, those 3 areas. There's been a couple of things that have been very exciting about this time. One is that I have a product background. So, and I also have done a lot of growth work. And then I've come into a company where we have an amazing leader on the product side, Thibaut Imbert, who is also, he's our CPO. He's basically our chief product officer and our growth officer. And he's done marketing. So what's really nice about what I'm finding with this role is that there is a lot of marketing DNA in the company, which is so like fun because we are actually the target audience. And so we know the pain points, and it's just so great to work with a product person who's got that marketing background. And then I also can kind of speak the product language because I had a product background. So that's been a little different. I think the other layer that has been different is this is probably the first company I've come into in this, like, I'm very, very fast AI moving time. I actually had, for the last year, I sort of took a year off. Prior to that, everyone was tinkering with AI. Everyone's like thinking about what they need to do. And I literally took a year off where I kind of disconnected a bit from tech. So I kind of feel like I just was like, in those funny like stories where somebody goes away and like basically wakes up and they're like, oh my gosh, it's 20 years later. I felt like that because I really sort of stayed away a little bit from the tech news. And I'm coming into this seeing, whoa, and it's awesome. I'm loving a lot of it, but I'm also seeing how that is very different in terms of teams. Teams are, and one of the things I do really like about the creative culture is that we are really looking at AI in our own workflows, in our own use, and then we're dogfooding our own product. And because so much of us have that marketing DNA, we're seeing how it's actually making our lives much easier and being able to influence that product roadmap in a very fun and unique way.
Sounds really exciting. And I think, it's funny when you work for different people with different perspectives, it can accelerate success. It can accelerate collaboration. And sometimes it can go, maybe the other direction. It sounds like you're a cool situation. I'm working on this, my own theory here. So maybe it'll go off the rails a little bit, but the sort of incredible realization that brands, I'm saying this very sarcastically, like the realization that brand still matters. It seems to be permeating the kind of marketing discussion universe a little bit, which I find interesting, especially as SEO maybe disintegrates before our eyes and whatever is happening with SEO, which is really interesting. But advertising has always been fundamental to the marketing mix, and traditional advertising especially, has traditionally been brand play, classic traditional advertising. And so can you talk about the evolution of advertising and maybe map that into AI? I'm curious what your perspective is.
Yeah, I think we're at it. I think you're right that there is this moment right now, or this sort of zeitgeist and conversation around how brands are going to basically come back to be so important. And that sort of connection and that you make with people on an emotional level is going to be much more important now. I think what we're seeing is we almost over rotated on like the super data driven and and there was a lot of pressure for us. I mean, you and I have, we've been around for a while in marketing, and there was kind of this point where it's like, you went in a room and you talked about brand and people were like, brand, like, where are the numbers? Right. And it was kind of painful to hear that because a lot of us came into marketing with this love for brand, love for storytelling, love for the creative parts of it. And, originally, early in my career, I actually started in an ad agency, and I loved that vibe. I worked in an ad agency, but it was right at that cusp when data-driven was getting to be really important. So I was actually working on email marketing for an ad agency who was just starting to think about sort of like more digital stuff. But I loved the part where we got to concept and we got to think about, write a brief and think about the idea. And over the years, so much pressure came around that it had to be about the numbers, that many of us basically had to jump on that growth hacking, growth marketing. And growth marketing, I think, is broader than growth hacking. I actually became a growth hacker for a while. That was the only way. For me, where I was in Silicon Valley tech, it felt like I had to sort of focus in that direction. But we're coming to an interesting time where I think for marketers, you can actually now use AI if you are really savvy and figuring out. Right now, I think there's just too many tools and too many places and things that you can do. But I think over time, that's going to get honed. You can use AI to do some of that sort of the number crunching and be able to still have the brain space to be creative and do the things that, I think were the intention that people, when they get into marketing, want to do.
Yeah, I deeply appreciate that answer. I keep looking for somebody who is gonna with some credibility go, no, Mark, you're wrong, but you're right, and I'm right. We all got sucked into the growth hack mentality, the quick win, because we can measure it, we should do it. And I remember I was actually digging through old hard drives this weekend trying to find it. I remember, so now it's got to be 11 or 12 years ago. I was with PwC. I got asked to do a presentation for a group of CMOs, and the title of it, I don't remember the exact title, but the title of it basically was Don Draper is Dead. And it was all about the power of growth hacking and SEO and PPC and all this stuff. And I just had this realization over the last 3 or 4 months, like that playbook is radically changing, but it's not dead totally. Obviously performance marketing, paid media, that's all still super important part of the mix. But I think the realization that brand maybe never went away. I heard somebody a couple months ago in a presentation about SEO say, we were wrong the whole time about SEO. SEO was always a brand channel, but we treated it like a performance channel. And I was like, oh God, I think he might be right. That's terrifying.
We almost treated everything like a performance thing. And I understood where that went. And I think a lot of us felt like we had to do that. And I still think there's tons of pressure on marketing leaders and marketers to be able to deliver on less and less. But I think while AI will help us be able to do those parts of the job that then allow us to be creative, I also think that's what the consumer wants. I think that marketing, so much of what's been put out there looks like it was growth hacked, looks like the reason why it's out there is because that's what, works with the numbers. But more and more people with AI, I think we're starting to see so much of the same, that you actually need that sort of deeper connection for anything to stand out.
Yeah. I think there's going to be I think we're already seeing it, a pendulum swing to, true kind of human creativity, true like innovative thinking. It is, I've been joking about this blog post that I've been writing for now a month. I just can't wrap my head around how to deliver it, but Don Draper and his ilk they're back. They might be zombies, but they're reanimated in a way that's, I think, really interesting and really exciting from a marketing standpoint, because we sort of mechanized the whole entire ecosystem to the point where it's like, well, you can't even have a good idea without somebody saying, well, let's test it. And it's like, well, what do you mean test it? Like either you have tastes, either you know what works, or you sort of don't at some level, but yeah, sure, we can test it. Does the bright green one work better for clicks? Sure. But does it convert as well? We don't know. Right. Cause attribution is a whole other part of the playbook.
Will people connect with you? Will they remember you? Like in a world where now everything feels like a commodity and everything can be redone and rebuilt so fast. It's like, well, then what is the thing that makes people think about you and care and want to continue to be connected to you? And that's brand. That's storytelling. That's sort of magical moments that are usually around personality, because we're humans and we connect to human things. It's funny that you're bringing up Don Draper, because we've been talking a lot about that. Not so much Don Draper, but that sort of golden age of advertising and the importance of an idea, a spark, the human part of marketing. And I actually bring up Bill Bernbach when I talk a little bit about this, because I ended up working early in my career when I was working in advertising. I actually worked at DDB. And they gave all the copywriters, I was a copywriter. They gave all the copywriters like the book about, Bernbach, and he was a copywriter and he was all about the storytelling. And before all of the things that we know now as growth marketers or came out, this was way before any of that. More of his work and his really iconic work was in print. He was already at that moment criticizing, focusing on mechanics. He was like, it shouldn't be about the mechanics. It should be the idea. And he was a little bit mean about like the people who were focused on the mechanics. He wasn't very kind about it. That was one of the things about that era is like, I wouldn't say that they were the kindest people, but the focus on the idea and the love for that, like idea generation, creativity, that was kind of a magical time. And I think we need that again. And we're going to need it to live in this new world where everything can be done by AI. So many things can be done by AI.
Yeah. I think you're 100% right. I think it's ironic because it isn't really like, it is like the current playbook of performance marketing is broken, but the old playbook of brand and story and ideas was never broken. And the evidence is clear, right? Just look to the CPG world, look to the Nikes and Adidas, and like look to the iconic brands of any time.
They outlasted.
Mercedes. Yeah.
Yeah. They
And
outlasted.
so it's so interesting to be in this moment in time. When I was coming up, I desperately wanted to work in an ad agency until I actually worked at one. I was like, oh, I don't like this at all. I don't like this at all. But I had big dreams of being I wanted to be a creative director. That was and I still get like, oh, I want to be a creative director. I don't know what that means in my head, but the ability to tell a great story is something that like we all can work on. There's some people who are naturally good at it. Others like really have to work at it. But that ability to tell a story both internally and externally, to an audience seems to be a little bit of a lost art wrapped in I don't know, like a performance click number, like, well, you got a lot of clicks, so it must have been a good story. Was it?
Was it? Did you actually was there an emotional reaction in like 2 years when when that becomes a commodity and everyone is doing that? Will people
Yeah.
remember you or not even remember you? Will they have stuck with you because there was something that they connected on that was more about the actual tactical thing? It was something about the storytelling. It was something about the personality. It was something about a magical moment that they emotionally connected with.
Right. And so here's what's so hard about all of what we just said is like in a performance world, you can measure things on a daily, monthly, quarterly basis. What you just said, which is, well, in 2 years, right? And so management doesn't want to hear that, right? Management doesn't want to hear, what do you mean emotional connection? How do I measure an emotional connection? And so it puts all this pressure on kind of the traditional aided, unaided, lift, like metrics, like all this stuff that takes a long time. It's not performance driven marketing. It's not a direct mail. I've been thinking about the Sears catalog a lot lately. I may be aging myself, but like I remember the Sears catalog and like the Kmart catalog and like, rifling through it and circling the Star Wars toy that I wanted and all that, all that kind of stuff. And that was sort of proto direct marketing. It was direct marketing in a big way. I remember
mail. I worked on the direct actual physical mail. So don't feel like
yeah.
There's that.
I'll tell you a funny story. I went to Florida State and we had this amazing, I was an advertising major, which turned out to be a media buying program and not a creative program. I'm an idiot, but whatever. It's a different story. But my senior year, they brought in a guy who was like, he wasn't like the Vegematic guy, but he was like a very successful infomercial person.
Okay.
And in hindsight, and we all made fun of him, like, oh, this guy's a joke. Like, it's a joke, right? But in hindsight, he probably was making money hand over fist. He was running ads at like 3 a.m. in the morning that were like, do with the thing. It's such a crazy thing. So, okay. So I think we agree on all that stuff. So like, talk to me about the ad playbook then, like, because you guys Creatopy provides an ad platform with a whole bunch of different stuff. So like, how is the advertising execution playbook changing? Do you guys help with the idea, or is it really just kind of chugging along in terms of like production, which is important and certainly can be streamlined with AI, with no doubt.
Yeah. I think that's the vision for sure, is that we are more of that holistic marketer, or helping holistic from the entire marketing flywheel, all the way from that phase of like, inspiration and, mood boarding and that kind of where you're thinking about what is that creative spark and idea, and it helps you get to the creation. And that's where right now, that's really where our sweet spot in terms of what our product offering has. I think we've gone very deep in that create space, which is, where you're actually designing the creatives and AI is helping you like resize and edit it with a prompt. And those are two things that we just recently launched: Edit with Prompt and AI Resize. So those are kind of like the areas that we are more deeply have launched things on the create side. And then we've got the launch, which is more about being able to, in a single place where you have created, now launch into various networks, and then learning and being able to then learn and do that number crunching and that figuring out what went right, what went wrong, what you should adapt, and then use that to then create new creatives but all along the way, our vision is that people will be able to bring that creative spark from the beginning, but also all along the way, so that it's really, the way I see it is like co-creation. And you're maybe not as much doing that co-creation on the sort of learn side, but I actually think what's really nice about being able to like crack open AI for marketers that maybe don't have the interest in doing all the number crunching, which honestly, I think many marketers don't want to do all that. It actually gives them the opportunity. I mean, there's some who just love it, but I felt certainly for me, even though I, could do it and got very good at it in terms of doing growth marketing, there was always a kind of a yearning to go back to the more creative. And that this is the part that I think is going to be great with, vertical AI solutions, like solutions. And that's where Creatopy is going. Vertical AI solutions for marketers. It's specifically trying to help a marketer. This will happen for lawyers. There is going to be a vertical AI solution that's lawyers, understands what you need. So that essentially, like marketers will be able to be more of that creative person, and they'll have basically a co-creator along the way that they can lean on, and they can be really thinking in the more strategic, more creative, more storytelling, more of the spark stuff from the Don Draper days that we've had to sort of move away from.
Yeah. Do you find, like, in your own use of AI, have you found the balance of give me the answer versus co-creation yet?
Oh, I love the co-creation part of it so
Me
much
too.
more than the
So
give
cool.
me the answer. Yeah. And it's not only that, like, even when I feel like, wow, yeah, this is like amazing. Like we worked together and got to this amazing point. Even then, though, I think there has been a little bit of like almost overexcitement about AI in a way where people have then just like literally cut and paste.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I
That's
mean by co-creation versus give me the answer,
yeah. And the cut and paste and like not having done the work to co-create. I've seen a lot of that, and you see it in like when some people like write an email and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, because because you didn't do the work to make it a co-created thing. You
Yeah.
just asked something, and then of course what you get isn't going to feel authentic.
That's right. Yeah. Doing the work. There will never, as far as I'm concerned, there'll never be a replacement for just doing the work. And now doing the work in an AI mitigated powered world is going to look different. But I find the co-creation really interesting because I have a sense that you are like me a little bit in that your brain kind of can go maybe a little orthogonally different. Like at times, like I want to explore this insane idea, and it's hard in a group, especially on Zoom or remotely. Like, hey guys, what about this? And you get the look versus like, actually, let me share that with AI, and sure, it's going to be a sycophant and tell me a good idea, but I know how to push it and pull
Yeah,
it so that it's like, actually, this is a whacked idea, but I see where the germ is. And I find the co-creation to be like wildly powerful as a creative thinker.
yeah, yeah. And I find it very exciting. I do feel similarly to you that I will take ideas that are just little it out there, but then I'll find little bits and pieces of the
Yeah.
story, and it's, I mean, it's like having, it's having a writer that you're working with, you know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
just playing off each other a little bit because because the response you get, you don't have to end with that. It's like, okay, yeah, yeah, but I was actually thinking we're this. And so I have found it to be fun, a lot of
Yeah.
fun. I really encourage people to have fun. Don't use it as a, like, okay, I'm just going to get the answer and then cut and paste
Right.
that.
In terms of playbooks, it can't help but impact how we think about building programs and creatives and the rest of the stuff. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Everything's very different now. Yeah.
Let's keep going, pushing in. So
Yeah.
one of the things that's interesting about doing this show is, I started thinking about like marketing playbooks, but the more I talk to people, the more I learn about people, it's like playbooks operate at a kind of multiple levels, a meta level, all the way down to a very tactical level. Nearly everything I do and some kind of formal or informal, even if I haven't thought about it, there's a set of steps you do, whatever, go rake the lawn. Okay. I got to go get the rake. There's a playbook, right? And so I'm curious to kind of pivot. I spent 10 years in nonprofit at health charities. I know you're really passionate about your work with Tech Women and some of the other charities you're working with. I'm curious, like get into whether it's the nonprofit playbook or the mentoring playbook. How is either AI impacting that or just generally speaking with the modern age, kids today, they're so different. Like how is that changing?
Well, I feel like with nonprofits and the nonprofits that Tech Women's a different kind of beast because not a beast, but a different group. They're bigger and they've been around for a while. And I worked with them when I was, at Flipboard. And so they are a little more dialed in. Some of the nonprofits I've been working with now are these very small, local, like one of them is Davis Farm to School. It's like our local, because I live in Davis. It's like our local group that's focusing on making sure that children understand food and where it comes from, and also are getting healthy food in schools. Those folks, I mean, AI will help them so much, but I don't know that they're even like using AI. Right now it's been even just the playbook of like how to do marketing, you know? And so with them, just like the most basic playbooks has been super helpful. I'm actually really excited to be able to bring AI to those types of nonprofits. I haven't done that yet. Where I've actually found myself being able to help nonprofits a lot is in brand, because like they don't have a designer. They don't know like certain things about like logos and like making sure that the logo is legible and can be both vertical and horizontal, like just things like that, And there's a playbook around that, but I haven't layered in AI with them. And I think that that's going to come through a lot of these vertical AI solutions, like AI for marketers. I can totally see nonprofits being able to tap into that and finally be able to do the kind of marketing that right now is sort of like exclusively only for super, super high paying customers
Yeah.
and brands.
I think you're right. I always struggled at the nonprofits I was at. I was at, to be fair, March of Dimes, Leukemia Lymphoma. I worked at some large, but even at those organizations, it was like, oh, we're a nonprofit, we can't afford that, or we can't do that. It's like, my thinking was always the opposite, which is we have to, right? The mission demands that we find a way to do this, right? Like we have to push ourselves. And the beautiful thing is we can find volunteers like you to come in, and like me to come in and help us, but then we have to let them help us. And so that playbook was always really tough to run, because there's a little bit of I'm going to make a broad, horrible statement. There's a little bit of a woe is me. Oh, we don't have money, this, that, the other thing. And it's like, right.
Yeah.
But like, necessity is the mother of invention. And so what's interesting, I think, about AI, and it's been a number of years since I've been a nonprofit, but wow, the amount of work that a kind of average level marketer can do. And I don't even necessarily mean volume, but like the creative thinking and work, that the ability to, even something like grant applications for someone who's, how many nonprofit founders have we run into who are like, I started this thing on a bootstrap. I'm really passionate about it. I don't know anything about grant writing. It's like, well, there's a machine now that can do that for you.
Yeah. The grant writing, I hadn't even thought of that, but yes. I remember, so I actually started a nonprofit, and
cool.
I will say, but this was sort of pre-AI being as good as it is now. So I'm like, ooh, that's one of the things that was like, essentially, I'd actually started a startup. It was called Giving Garden, and it was an app for people to learn what to grow based on their local microclimate and be able to share and reduce food waste. And it was a lot of fun. I realized it was not going to be a huge moneymaker, and a lot of the things I really enjoyed was how it was going to help the local communities. And so I ended up making it, like rolling it into a nonprofit called Land and Ladle. And I will say that one of the things that was so hard was the grant writing, because it's so precise. Like when you look at these grant applications, well, gosh, I hadn't even thought of this, but AI, like you just put the application as a prompt.
That's it. And it's like, now, then like, give me
that. I need to go tell that to all my nonprofit friends.
I've been telling everybody I can think of, like, you guys do grants. Like, can I get a good idea for you here? It's pretty simple. But again, it's like, that's not the playbook, right?
No,
those aren't
but
the
also
skills.
You do need to co-create. So I could see people just like, bloop, and then like,
absolutely.
So you co-create that, but that, oh my gosh. That would have been so helpful for me as a nonprofit founder who was trying really to figure out, how do I get into these grants? And I was fine the grants. But I'd actually hear from people that like, if you don't get it exactly to the T, the way, they'll just throw out your grant application. So that's a great use case. I also think that nonprofits and small businesses, I think they're going to see some amazing opportunities ahead with what AI is bringing, especially when we see vertical marketing AI solutions come to the table, because it's possible. Like what I had seen with nonprofits is like they were really late to figuring out social media. They were pretty late to it. But when they did, then it was like, now nonprofits, yeah, of course we have an Instagram. Of course we're like, they know it. It took them some time, but they figured it out. I think it's going to, and I think it's only because of like resources. They just didn't have the resources to
Yeah.
apply to it. But then they realized that this is the only way to really reach the people that they need to reach. I think they will be doing the exact same thing on like marketing and design. That's the area that I've seen them still struggle with, is that like
Yeah.
advertising and design. And this will actually, I think there's going to be a big wave of them being able to enter that because now we've made it easier for them.
Yeah. I'm excited about that because I think there's so many great causes out there that kind of can't find their way, not unlike some small businesses. And but I do think that like it's easy enough to sort of sit here as a professional marketer and be like, well, just go to ChatGPT and be like, hey, I don't really know much about social media. I run a nonprofit. Can you, but just that prompt alone is probably up beyond most, executive directors who are marketing people. So there's the playbook that I'm trying to figure out both at SEMrush and also helping some friends is this concept of AI literacy. Like, how do we really make sure people know how to, like even the free version of ChatGPT is wildly more powerful than anything any of us have ever had access to. So it's not like even a money commitment, but it is a playbook mental thing. You have to sort of rearrange your thinking in order to even know that that's a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think that it's sort of, there's two sides to that. I think that one is that, marketers nonprofit founders and small businesses, they're going to have to get some of that literacy. But I also think that these vertical AI solutions are going to have to anticipate the need. I think that's where AI is going to be really like magical, is when you don't really it's going to know sort of what you need a little bit and help you get there without the necessarily needing to know the exact prompt.
Yeah,
And that's,
I agree. I
yeah.
agree. Yeah. And that even further changes the playbook, right? Especially when you get into like, okay, how do you operationalize that onto a website, right? Like the notion of like building a website page by page kind of goes away pretty quickly once you sort of go, oh, we can just go like, I need a website. And it goes, well, who are you? What do you do? Oh, okay. Here's a website. And by the way, it's well designed and it says the right things and all those
or
things.
even like, I have I sell X at the farmer's market. Like it could be that much. Okay, these are the things you need, right? Of course,
Absolutely.
if you're selling this thing at the farmer's market, you're going to need A, B, C, D, and really help you from just that, like more of you telling about yourself and your need.
Yeah. So interesting. So much here. Let's transition because we've been talking for a while, but I want to sort of get to the last bit, which is this segment I call forcing yourself. And it's all about the psychology of how people accomplish their goals or frankly, just get out of bed in the morning. So let's get inside Deema's head here a little bit. Like, tell me about a time where you just had to force yourself to break your own habits, change your perspective, kill an idea. Like what process, mindset, go anywhere you want with the answer. There's no rules here, but just like, how do you force yourself to do stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell a little bit of like, it's like a bit of a personal kind of journey for me. It's going to sound a little weird, but I have always been like up until this thing where I forced myself, I've always been a super fast paced run, juggle a million things. But I think with where marketing was going and tech in general, with like so many tools for everything, constantly being on Zoom, on, Meet or whatever, I actually hit a point where I actually had to force myself to actually slow down, which sounds strange as like a positive thing because like we're so much in this world of like, no, work, productivity, fast, speed. But for me, it was starting to feel frenetic. I think it was that way for a lot of people. I think especially during the pandemic, this is when it sort of hit me the hardest. And so one day I just turned off my computer, because I was starting to feel a little bit like I was becoming or feeling like I was being forced to be a machine. And feeling like that felt so frenetic that it felt like things were not firing right. So I went outside and I went on a walk. I listened to a podcast, which it's funny because prior to that, I had actually advised for a podcast company. But like for me, that was work. I was like listening to podcasts for work. And so instead I just like put on, I think it was Oprah's Super Soul. And I ended up listening. I couldn't believe this. Now I look back and I'm like, that's amazing that was the first thing that I played. I played this interview with an author, Johann Hari. He wrote a book called Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention, and how how to think deeply again. Um, what an amazing interview to have at that moment where I was feeling like, and it was exactly the right thing for me to listen to understand that, yeah, we are being asked to be machines right now. And it's actually not making us more productive. It's just making us super frenetic. And I do think that marketers right now are very much in that phase of like frenetic. And we were talking about where you started out being creative and then all of a sudden it's like, what tools are you in and how many things have you analyzed? And it's like, it's so much. And so I started making that a practice of just doing a walk every day, sometimes listening to podcasts, sometimes not. I started even like offering that kind of more like taking a deep breath and having a break in a meeting before we jump in with my team. And I mean, the feedback I got was like amazing. It was like, thank you. We got to just like breathe for a second. And what I found, which I didn't expect, like I did that out of kind of a necessity where I was like, this is too much, was that when I slowed down and allowed myself time to think deeply, time to be creative again, I was way more productive. I was actually slowing down to speed up. And I hadn't done it for that reason, but it ended up happening. And now I'm just like a huge believer in like finding ways to slow down. Your work will be better. You'll feel better. You'll be happier. And you actually will speed up in ways you wouldn't expect.
That is so interesting. What's the, I'm like famous for misquoting things. What's that quote about when you're ready, the teacher shows up? There's something about that, right? Like it's the universe speaking, not to get new agey, but like you're in that frantic moment and it's like, I'll go for a walk, put a podcast on. It's that podcast is like,
It's that podcast. I still think about that all the time.
Isn't that like, it's like, you really kind of go, oh, I got it.
Thank you.
Whatever it is. That is really, that's incredible. Something I've been working on as well. Although you're ahead of me. I'll try to catch up by slowing
down. Just like little moments, little practice here and there, but it's been great. And, I fall out of it. Don't get me wrong. It's like, it's like any other like practice. But it's funny. I can feel it when I'm falling out of it. And I'm like, okay, got to go back and do a little bit of that, just slowing down. And every time that happens, I'm a little bit nervous because I'm like, I need to be fast. And then I force myself. I actually then I'm always like pleasantly surprised. Yep. Every time I'm actually more productive and I actually do better work and I'm happier and the people I'm with are happier. So it's worked.
That is profound, Deema. Thank you so much for being on the show today. This was interesting. I was writing some notes down. Congratulations on the new gig.
Thank you.
We talked about advertising and the evolution of the advertising playbook and what you guys are doing to build vertical marketing solutions, which sounds fun, which is something that we all need to play with. The Don Draper is a zombie and he's back is interesting. And I think my favorite part is the book. The book is Stolen Focus, right?
Yep, by Johan Hari. Yeah.
And it's interesting because of course it's ironic, right? Of course you have to slow down to stop acting like a machine and embrace your humanness.
Yeah.
It is of course the answer to the problem. And so I thank you for that. That was an amazing insight. That was great. Before we go, tell us where do we find you? Where do we find Creatopy? Like where do people connect?
Yeah. Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so definitely find me there and creatopy.com. Come check us out. And we're going to be putting a lot of new stuff out there for folks. Like I mentioned, we've started a lot with the create space, but we really want to be that vertical AI marketing solution. So hopefully helping people all along the marketing flywheel. Yeah. And this has been so fun. Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Me too. So great. It's awesome meeting you. I love what you're doing. Thank you everybody for watching Playbook Broken. You can find us on YouTube, martech.org, all the auto channels. We put the thing everywhere. If you have comments or feedback for me, for Deema, or for anybody, you can find me on LinkedIn, leave a comment in the comments, and thank you for watching.